For my latest video, I wanted to delve a little more into how anxiety and depression can affect relationships, how they can affect our relationships. Um, and again, this will be from my own experience. I know that everybody is an individual. You're going to have your own experience, things the way that maybe your condition has affected your relationship with your significant others, your family, your friends, your work. But I feel like this is to give insight, not just to the people experiencing these conditions, but also the people who are living with people who have these mental health conditions. So the first one I'm going to mention has to do with how anxiety affects and can affect your relationships. And this is specifically how we become so self-consumed, right? So how one big thing that it's going to do is it's going to make us talk about ourselves. Indirectly, we're going to talk about ourselves all the time. We're going to talk about what we're worried about. If we have health anxiety, we're going to talk about what symptom we're having. Why are we having this symptom? And this is really insidious. You might not realize you're doing it, but sure enough, if the conversation goes in another direction, you go ahead and pay attention to how quickly you veer it back to something to do with why am I having shortness of breath? Why do I feel this way? Why I feel spacey? Things don't seem right. Why am I having this pain in my head? Or why does my face feel tight? Whatever it might be, whatever the symptom that we're experiencing right at that time, you'd be surprised at how quickly the conversation will get back when we're having anxiety, how quickly it'll get back to something to do with our mental health condition, our health, what we might perceive as our actual health condition. Another thing that you'll notice, and this really affects our relationships, we become horrible listeners. Horrible. And this is because, for one thing, like I just mentioned, we are consumed with our own worries and fears. But also, our mind might be racing so much that we just don't even have the ability to concentrate, to be a good listener. So part of it might be, okay, yeah, we're thinking about our thoughts and our worries and our fears, but part of it might just be we have an absolute inability to focus on anything, much less listening to someone talk about, maybe the day's events, maybe something even important that we should be able to lock onto and listen to, that's imperative in like marital relationships or relationships with our children, but we don't have the ability to because our thoughts are just racing. We are unable to focus. So that's another big one that I've noticed that it's going to affect your relationships, right? I mean, who wants to be around somebody? Who wants to be around somebody who doesn't listen to you? That is a significant flaw and hindrance to any relationship. Yeah. Also, to go right along with that, these racing thoughts that we have, they make it so, again, that's another thing that makes it so that we can't listen. We can't focus. We're not good in a relationship situation because of these racing thoughts. And then another thing, you might be feeling out of sorts enough mentally where you withdraw. Withdrawing is another big thing that happens. You feel like your thoughts are so aberrant and so different than they normally are, and you've been pestering somebody with, do you think I'm okay? Or you're looking for this reassurance. Do you think I'm okay? Is this, do you think I'm going to be okay? And you've been doing that and bludgeoning them with that. And so then you just end up locking up and not talking at all. That's another big thing that happens with anxiety. I know that there were times when I know I had been so hyper focused on my own anxiety and my own thoughts that I just left my house because I didn't want to keep pestering my poor wife with question after question about anxiety. And of course, it's all going to be about you, right? So this is really not good for relationships, and will have a definitive long-term effect if you don't get yourself treated and get the condition under control. Now, if we veer over into depression, at least my personal experience with it, that's when the tendency was a lot more to withdraw and to not talk, to just keep it inside. Because with the depression, things that normally made me feel really, big things, made me have strong emotions, nothing. And that's a really scary place to be, right? So when you're deeply clinically depressed, you're probably not going to talk as much. You might find yourself, just trying to disappear into the background. You don't want to stain the things that you love with this living death that you're experiencing, because of the result of, this deep, dark clinical depression. Also, it was when I was deeply clinically depressed that I would notice that I had severe derealization and depersonalization. Again, things that are going to keep you from being close to the people that you love. When you feel like it's not reality, when you feel like it's this twisted reality where you don't have, and then your emotions aren't the same. Things that normally, whether it's a beautiful sunset, whether it's, seeing your kid, whether it's, whatever really gets your juices flowing, when you're clinically depressed, it's going to be like an emotional flat line. And then there'll be something insignificant and you start crying. So this type of behavior, when you're around, again, your significant other, whether it's your significant other, when you're around close family, children, this is not going to be something that strengthens your relationships. This is going to have a negative effect on your relationships, where you pull inside yourself or where you're crying out of the blue. It's going to seem very strange to them. And again, it's still going to be about you, right? Even though that you're not trying to be selfish, maybe you're even trying to keep from inflicting more damage on the situation, it's still going to have a negative consequence, whether you're withdrawing or whether you're, again, talking about something to do with you, or maybe you're removing yourself completely from the relationship because you don't want to damage it any further. And then finally, just quickly, I'll touch on obsessive compulsive disorder and the way this can affect relationships. Clearly, this is going to have, especially intrusive thought, obsessive compulsive disorder is going to have potentially a huge effect on a relationship, because you're not going to want clearly to talk about these intrusive thoughts. They aren't anything you want to talk about with anybody. They're going to be, the stuff of nightmares. If you start talking about them, the look on their face, on anyone's face, is going to be like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with you? So you're not going to want to talk about that. And also, it's not productive to talk about that. So let's remember that too. With intrusive thought OCD, talking about those crazy intrusive thoughts that are playing on a loop in your head it's not productive. It's not going to quell them. It's not going to get them to calm down. And if anything, it's going to scare you. It's going to scare the other person, and it's going to have an adverse effect on the relationship. So that's a pretty obvious thing that is going to negatively impact relationships with OCD. Also, if you have compulsions that you do, hand washing, avoiding cracks, turning doorknobs, whatever compulsion you've developed. Compulsions are not things that help relationships to thrive, right? They're things that we're doing that are out of the way, that are our own thing, that make no sense. Of course, people can get used to these. It's amazing how families can adapt to your insanity, but it's not going to help relationships. So now just covering those quickly and how that affects relationships. What can you do? How do you get better from this? How do you keep the relationships in your life from being affected by anxiety, panic disorder, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder? Well, number one, seek treatment. See a mental health professional. And don't let your pride get in the way, especially if you're a man. You know, mental health is taboo. You know, even in the comment section, I'll see things about how, you know, a man shouldn't have these issues. And I firmly believe that's why men can end up, you know, either harming themselves, taking their own life because they feel like it's a lack of manliness to go and to seek help for these mental health conditions. Guys, it's not. It's a sign of intelligence when you have something wrong to get it treated and to get better. That is not a lack of strength. That is not a lack of manliness. That is intelligence. That is caring about yourself and others, which last time I checked is, you know, why we're here. So also those three things I always talk about, it doesn't sound like those are things that can move mountains, but when it comes to mental health, they can. Get your sleep, get your quality of sleep and your quantity of sleep. Exercise, get your exercise. 3 times a week, get 30 minutes of exercise. And finally, eat in a balanced way. And so what do I mean by that? I mean, don't eat to have food control you, but you control your diet. Eat in a balanced way. Also, try, even if it's for 5 minutes, for 1 minute, for 30 seconds, to focus on other people, to focus on something other than your condition. Keep trying to stretch out with this as you get better, as you get treatment. This will really help when it comes to salvaging relationships that may have been damaged by these clinical mental health conditions. And finally, keep the line of communication open. Even though you may have spent a lot of time talking about yourself, you may have spent a lot of time, you know, talking about things that don't make sense because of your mental health condition. Don't stop talking to your children. Don't stop talking to your significant other. Keep talking to them. Keep the line of communication open, because remember, intimacy and closeness, you got to have communication. So you don't want to shut that down altogether. That's when these relationships can end up permanently damaged. So this is just a short video I made to talk about the way that some of these mental health conditions end up affecting our relationships. Again, thank you guys so much for the support for the channel. I really appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe. If you know somebody who's going through this, or if you know somebody who's maybe married to someone or has a partner who is going through this, let them know about the channel. They might find some answers to things that, you know, they thought maybe they were losing their mind. Maybe they thought something was wrong with them deeply. Maybe this will give them the courage to get the help they need. That's why I started the channel. But again, thank you guys so much for the support. And until my next video, take care.